Broadcasting live from the mountains of Montana, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Hello and welcome to episode 85 of the Wise Conservative Show. It's hard to believe we're already up to 85 episodes. I'm your host, Connor Wise. Now, we do have a great lineup prepared for this week. A lot of stuff actually happened, and also some updates from some stories that we talked about last week, including the phone calls that President Trump made to the family members of those soldiers. But actually starting off, we have this story on these critics that Trump has that are actually Republicans within the Senate. We're seeing that these Republican senators who have been going against Trump turn in and turn out. These people are actually seeing a decline in their polling numbers, and some of them are already saying that they're not running for re-election. The two Republican senators who have already said that they're not going to run for re-election are Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. He's the main one. He's the first one that said that he was actually going to not run for re-election. He said that just yesterday. It was on a lofty Senate floor speech, and he said that he'd no longer be complicit or silent about Trump's perceived offenses. He followed with an op-ed today which said, quote, 9 months of this administration is enough for us to stop pretending that this is somehow normal. His poll numbers, though, for 2018 re-election already were underwater. Just 37% of Arizona Republican voters approved of Flake's job performance, and 50% disapproved. And that was according to a recent Morning Consult poll. Quote, he was going to lose, and he was going to lose big. A GOP consultant said that. Someone from Arizona, actually. So Flake's fallout with Trump started even before President Trump took office, when he withheld his endorsement because President Trump insulted, then candidate Donald Trump insulted Vietnam veteran and Arizona senior GOP Senator John McCain. Then Flake released an anti-Trump book this summer called Conscience of a Conservative. Quote, he wrote a book about me before I ever heard of him. This is President Trump. The first time I saw him on TV, I assumed he was a Democrat. His poll numbers are terrible. He's done terribly for the great people of Arizona, a state that likes Trump. Flake's relationship with Arizona voters began to deteriorate soon after he went from the House to the Senate and became a member of the infamous Gang of Eight bill. If you've done any research into any of the candidates from the past election, you know that all of them that were a part of the Gang of Eight bill, that infamous amnesty bill, they did terrible. Marco Rubio lost the presidency probably mainly because of that. The majority of Republicans hated him because of it. Besides that, he seemed like a solid candidate to many Republicans, but that was where he wavered. So when someone joined this amnesty bill, the Gang of Eight, they basically lose their support from conservatives. Quote, in a border state like Arizona, if your single issue is amnesty, you should expect to have problems with your base. This is, again, that GOP consultant from Arizona. He continued, his problems with Arizona voters predate Trump, the candidate. The sparring with Trump might not have helped him either, though. We see that Telly Ward has now said, quote, everything is in place to get me to Washington and drain the swamp. She said that, saying that, well, these people aren't actually going to stay there because all of these people who are a part of the swamp, all these people who are going against President Trump, they're the ones that are being drained already. We see that President Trump is draining the swamp. We see that these true conservatives who actually are holding their ideals, those such as Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, all of these people who are actually sticking to their word, they're staying in their spot. They're staying in the spot where they're going to be able to help America from Senate, from the House, and they're not going to be drained such as all of these rhinos or Republicans in name only. Now, Corker was the other senator who had a shaky relationship with President Trump. compared to Flake's, it seemed to unravel more recently, just past in August, when the two-term senator questioned the president's competence and leadership after the deadly protests in Charlottesville. And this was, of course, where a woman was fatally struck by a car, allegedly driven by a white supremacist, and all of these other events happened. It was a big deal. I talked a lot about it on multiple shows. But Corker announced in September that he would not seek re-election. Polls for him in June showed just 41% of likely GOP primary voters said Corker deserved re-election. And there's still escalating war of words fought largely on Twitter. Corker suggested that Trump got a hold of a cell phone and started tweeting insults at him because quote, hashtag the daycare staff was off duty. Trump called Corker Little Bob and taunted that he couldn't get elected Doncaster. So basically, who could be next in this giant feud between Republicans and President Trump? We've already seen multiple Republicans come out against Donald Trump on issues such as health care and tax reform. Of course, these senators such as Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Dean Heller of Nevada, they've been on Trump's radar for a while. These are the ones that went directly against him during the Obamacare issues within the Senate. Heller got a taste of what running for election in 2018 would be like when he said in June that he couldn't support Senate Republicans' Obamacare replacement bill. A Trump-aligned super PAC, America First Policies, announced right after that an anti-Heller ad campaign. And while Heller was sitting next to Donald Trump at a White House event, the president said about him, quote, he wants to remain a senator, doesn't he? Trump has been easier on Murkowski and also Susan Collins in trying to get their votes for ending Obamacare and trying to give him his first big legislative win. Quote, he said trying to convince these senators, quote, Alaska had a 200% plus increase in premiums under Obamacare, worst in the country. Deductibles high, people angry, Lisa M. comes through. Collins is far more comfortable in Maine than Flake is in Arizona, but Maine voters picked Democrat Hillary Clinton over President Trump in 2016. So we see that Collins is able to be a lot more liberal in her decisions, and that might actually be why she's been going against President Trump in a lot of these issues. Now, neither one of these senators really depend on Trump voters, and that's why they're kind of insulated from President Trump's influence. But what we see is many people who go against President Trump have been taken out already. They've already been pushed out of the political world because they're going against someone that so many Americans support and that so many Americans would rather have over a Democrat. They're going against the agenda, the conservative agenda that so many Americans want. And so what we've been seeing is all of these people, these rhinos that are pushing against President Trump, they've been being pushed out themselves. They've been being pushed out by not only the White House, but also the voters themselves, because the voters don't want someone who is not willing to work with the president. That was one of the biggest issues that we had in the previous administration. The White House and Senate and the House never worked together. Now, that was an issue from both parties. Neither side wanted to work together. But now we have a majority in the House and the Senate, and we have a Republican White House. There has to be working together. And when we have these people, these rhinos that aren't actually adhering to their conservative ideals, adhering to these conservative agendas, and they're just going against President Trump because that's what's the cool thing to do nowadays, they're not going to get reelected. And it's a good thing that we're already seeing that effect take place in these different senators saying that they won't run for reelection. But I did say we were going to update you on the issue that we talked about last week with the phone calls about the killed soldiers. So a Gold Star widow actually recounted taking that phone call from President Trump. And she said that her experience was much different than what the media has been describing. This woman is Michelle Black, and, well, her husband was Special Forces soldier Brian Black. He was among the 4 soldiers killed in Niger earlier this month during the mission that remains somewhat unclear. The military is still trying to determine if the soldiers were randomly targeted or if they were led into an overwhelming ambush. But Michelle Black said when it comes to the ongoing investigation, the military is giving her guidance, but she's not watching the news or following the day-to-day details because much of it is just wrong, and much of it is just attacking political issues. Michelle Black said that she was grateful when President Trump called, saying, quote, "I think that the excitement from that made it a little better, even if it was just for a minute." She said when it comes to ongoing investigation, that having the president call was a sort of reassurance, saying, quote, "I'm very grateful that he called and spoke to the kids, and I think that the excitement from that made it even better. So yeah, he was very gracious, and I appreciate anyone who calls, because like I said, that takes quite a bit of bravery to call into that kind of situation." She said that President Trump had no issue trying to recall her husband's name, and that President Trump did not say anything that was disrespectful, which are, of course, the claims that are being made out of multiple news sources when it comes to President Trump making phone calls for these fallen soldiers. Now, this kind of follows or a path that the news media has been taking for a while. That they kind of make up these stories, they create their own agenda and narrative, and then they present it as facts. Now, this is kind of prefacing something that I'm going to talk about later in the episode, something that CNN has actually just recently come out with, that you're going to have to wait to see what it is. But what we have seen for the past probably about year now, maybe longer, is the news has had one agenda, and that's been to solely attack Donald Trump. And it doesn't matter if what they are doing is necessarily facts. It doesn't matter if what they are doing is necessarily true. All that matters is that it defames his name. That's what they've been going for the past year, maybe more. And the fact that they made a situation such as the deaths of Special Forces soldiers political is astounding, and it's sick and wrong. But this Gold Star widow here that is saying that President Trump didn't make any disrespectful comments, that he didn't have a hard time remembering her husband's name, she's going to be left out of most news media. She's not going to be reported on because she's not following their agenda. She's not following the narrative that they have set to discredit everything that President Trump does. We see time after time now, Democrats are actually calling this event Trump's Benghazi because he had soldiers die under his watch. And because, well, they say that it wasn't handled correctly, just like Benghazi. But there is a screaming error in that notion. First off, it's not like in Benghazi where these soldiers tried to call for help but the White House ignored them. It's not like in Benghazi where they called for help but Hillary Clinton couldn't pick up her phone. It's not like in Benghazi where they requested for more security for months and months and months but were denied by the State Department. And it's not like Benghazi where they blamed it on a YouTube video the day after, even though they knew that that wasn't true. And this hasn't been handled incorrectly. They're doing a thorough investigation into what the cause of this was, and even the calls to these widows and the family members was done respectfully and was done correctly. But that's not what you're going to hear in the news media, folks. That's not what you're going to hear from CNN. That's not what you're going to hear from MSNBC, from ABC, from all of these different sources, because that doesn't follow their fake news agenda. It doesn't follow their agenda to discredit our president. But we'll actually have more on the news media. It's the main topic of this show, so don't go anywhere. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Wise Conservative Show. Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of The Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. With universal health care, which is essentially the next step beyond Obamacare, this is where Democrats want to take the country. This is where the left wants us to go. With universal health care, now there's no insurance companies, no one competing whatsoever, and the government controls it all.
Calling all young conservatives. Have you ever wanted to write for an online publication? What about host your own conservative radio program? Now you can, thanks to YouthRevolt.org. Youth Revolt is a conservative media network for young people, the goal of which is to educate our fellow Americans, and also to expose the left-wing indoctrination that goes on in classrooms across the country. Become part of a team that is dedicated to taking the country back, one radio program or opinion column at a time. If you're interested, go to YouthRevolt.org and click on Join Us on the top of the page. Fill out our brief questionnaire, and one of our representatives will be in touch with you in no time at all. The time to reclaim our future is now. Be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and join the movement today. Youth Revolt. Speak without fear. My friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. There are a lot of frauds out there today. People who claim to be conservatives and yet, in one way or another, believe that more government is the solution to our problems. That's not what conservatism is about, and even more than that, that's not what our Constitution is about. I'm Jason Veely, a recent college grad who has the guts to say what needs to be said without pulling any punches. On my radio show, you can expect 100% pure conservatism every single weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Join me as we discuss history, liberty, and conservative philosophy in a style that is just as entertaining as it is educational. Who says we can't have fun tearing down the liberal establishment? Tune in to the Jason Veely program live every weeknight at 7 o'clock on YouthRevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
America is known for its expansive wilderness for all to explore. And for many, that exploration is an important hobby. This exploration is why The Survivalist was created. On this blog, you will find expansive information on all things wilderness, from what knife you should carry to what backpack gives you the best bang for your buck. This group of 4 writers has created a very diversified and useful site, which I personally recommend. The site has given me much knowledge on a variety of topics, and I urge you to check it out at the-survivalist.weebly.com. Once again, that is the-survivalist.weebly.com.
I was assuming that it meant coverage, but if he says that there's a small group of people who understood what it was, so I'm like, what is it? What is confetti?
It gets 2 scoops. You know, everyone around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
Are you tired of listening to the snowflake liberal media report about ice cream scoops and typos instead of real facts? Well, at the Wise Conservative Show, we promise you that we will not report about Kofifi, but instead about the truth, instead about the facts about what's going on in our nation. Join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Wise Conservative Show for your dose of unapologetic conservative talk radio. The Wise Conservative Show, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Folks, CNN has a new ad campaign. Now, if you've ever listened to any of these stories that CNN has continually put out there, you would be wondering why they chose this ad campaign. Now, what it is trying to attack Trump and his fake news hashtags and initiative that he's created, well, I'll let you guys listen to the actual commercial. Okay, I have the audio from it here, so take a listen of this commercial, and then I'll explain it a bit more after you listen to this.
This is an apple. Some people might try to tell you that it's a banana. They might scream banana, banana, banana over and over and over again. They might put banana in all caps. You might even start to believe that this is a banana. But it's not. This is an apple.
So at the end there, where there wasn't any more words being spoken, the words "facts first" appeared on the screen. Now, this is just a 30-second ad that CNN has now brought out. Now, it's an attempt from CNN to try and prove that they present facts and to kind of attack President Trump's complaints about fake news. But what this does actually is discredit them even further. Because what this does is remind us of the fake news that they truly are, reminds us of the bias that they have. This ad campaign that they just introduced was the worst thing that CNN could have done. Because it reminds everyone that they are actually fake news. It reminds everyone that, well, CNN doesn't actually present unbiased stuff. So it is a little interesting as to why they chose to go with this. But it is attacking anyone who claims that they are fake news. It's attacking anyone who claims that fake news even exists. It's alienating people, but there's been a lot of leftists who have done that in the very past. But I thought it was interesting, looking at data after listening to that ad. A Harris poll found in May that 65% of voters feel that fake news in the mainstream news media is a big problem. 65% of voters. Now let's break that down even further, because I know what you're thinking. That could just be all Republicans, mostly Republicans at least. But what that number includes is 80% of Republicans, 60% of independents, and 53% of Democrats. So over half of Democrats think that there is fake news. 60% of independents think that there is, and 80% of Republicans do. Now, this isn't just something that conservatives are latching onto. This is something that the entire political spectrum in our nation believe. And CNN is now trying to attack the notion that fake news exists. But what CNN is truly trying to do is they're trying to attack the conservatives that are using this. They're trying to attack the people who are saying that CNN doesn't present facts. But CNN definitely does. Do you guys remember the Charlottesville accounts? All of those stories, the articles coming out of CNN and MSNBC, the ones that said that President Trump didn't condemn any of that violence, didn't condemn any of that. Well, I remember specifically that he did multiple times, and I remember an episode where I actually created a sound effect that was President Trump condemning it, and I actually have that here.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides.
So that was just one account of the fake news. Do you also remember when the producer was caught on camera, a CNN producer was caught on camera, saying that they were just doing all the Russia stories for ratings, saying that they reported that all of that stuff just so that they could get ratings and that just so that they could push an agenda? He said that he hated reporting on it. He said that he didn't like doing it, but he had to for ratings and to push their agenda. That's CNN. They're pushing an agenda. They're pushing ratings with fake news. He said that it wasn't true. He said that it wasn't a real story, but they were making it up. Folks, that was an actual producer from CNN that said all of those things. CNN, time after time, has lied about stuff that is going on in the White House. CNN has reported and tried to demonize President Trump for getting 2 scoops of ice cream. CNN had a field day when President Trump had a typo in a tweet. Yet they're trying to say that they present facts first. They're trying to say that they are as real as it gets, that they only report the facts. Folks, CNN is an interesting news source because they claim to be unbiased, and many people think they're unbiased still, but time after time, and just look at any of their articles, I'm sure you can find at least one false statement in them. Because recently, I'm not sure about how it was a few years ago, but within the past couple years, they've been going with unnamed sources for just about every news article that they have. You look at it and it's never an actual source. It's always an unnamed White House source or an unnamed source in blah, blah, blah that's related to the article. Told us this. They never have an actual source. They never have a source that actually tells them anything. They just make it up. Or they do have an unnamed source. It's just not a reliable source. Folks, this next segment, this next article that I have, or story, relates heavily to this. So, the previous presidents that are still living, they got together. They got together and gave speeches, and they were out in the open. And after that, former President Jimmy Carter had one of his first major interviews since President Trump took office nearly a year ago. He spoke with the New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd in a piece titled "Jimmy Carter Lusts for a Trump Posting." Carter talked about many different political topics, so I'm just going to go through a list of the things that he talked about. He did say that he would serve as a liaison to North Korea if President Trump wanted him to. He said that the U.S. was no longer the dominant character in the whole world, and that we're not going to be, adding that, quote, Russia's coming back and India and China are coming forward. He knocked former President Barack Obama's decision to bomb Yemen, as well as his refusal to hold more serious discussions with North Korea. On the NFL protesting, Carter said players, quote, ought to find a different way to object to and to demonstrate, saying he wished players would stand during the anthem. But then he got into stuff on President Trump specifically. He said that the world's image was going down before President Trump took office. Carter was not as bothered by Trump's relationship with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and he actually disagrees with his wife about the impact of Russia's meddling in the election, saying, quote, I don't think there's any evidence that what the Russians did changed enough votes or any votes. And this is the point that I really want to stress. This is the point that I want you guys to really take from this. If you don't remember any of the other things that previous President Carter said, remember this. He claimed, quote, the media have been harder on Trump than any other president currently that I've known about, saying that reporters felt, quote, free to claim that Trump is mentally deranged and everything else without hesitation. Now, before the commercial break, I said that fake news and the news media in general was going to be the main topic of this episode. And I've definitely done episodes before where I talk about the media and fake news. But folks, as time passes and as President Trump is in office longer, we see the amount of this bias within the news media increases. And I agree with Carter here. The media has definitely been harder on Trump than any other president. In fact, they praised President Obama for many things that wasn't that good. They praised President Obama, saying that he had no scandals when he had over 30 scandals within his 8 years of presidency. They praised the Obama administration over everything. Even when he didn't handle it correctly, even when he chose the wrong thing. They praised him on Obamacare when Obamacare has been a complete disaster. Folks, President Trump eats ice cream and they attack him for it. President Trump goes out to dinner instead of interviewing with the news media, and they attack him for it. President Trump breathes, and they basically attack him for it. Anything that he does, no matter good or bad, the news media has attacked him day in and day out. Because they're no longer reporting facts, folks. They're no longer reporting unbiased things. They're no longer reporting anything that actually is worth anything. See, what they're doing is they're pushing an agenda now. They're pushing a notion where they want to push President Trump's legitimacy and his name into this pile where people think that it's not good, where people hate him, basically. The liberal media is on a mission to discredit our president. No matter what he does, he cannot win. No matter what he does, good or bad, he can't win. Folks, this past election revealed a lot about some people. It revealed a lot about the media. They don't even try to hide the fact that they're biased anymore. They don't even try to hide the fact that they hate our president anymore. They don't respect him anymore. They don't respect the office anymore. They haven't even given him a chance. It's shown that there's a lot of vocal leftists that have no filter and that are crybabies about the election even to this day. It shows that many people on the left can't even give our president a chance, can't even root for him because he is running our nation, folks. But they'd rather see our nation fall and President Trump fail than seeing a successful President Trump administration. That's what this recent election has revealed. It's revealed a bad side with a lot of Americans. All these people who are still stuck on the election, who are saying that America is terrible now because President Trump is in office. All these people who don't do their own research and just listen to CNN and MSNBC. There's so much that has happened in this past election that has revealed that there are, I'm not going to say it's the majority of leftists, because that's not fair. I can't make that assumption. They might assume that every single conservative is terrible, but we are not going to stoop down to their level. But there is definitely a vocal minority, at least, that is not actually giving the presidency a chance, that is not actually looking at the facts, that is not actually reading into anything, but instead is just listening to what one person said, or what BuzzFeed said, or what Facebook told them. I don't remember how exactly long ago it was, but I did an episode, I think it was over this summer, where a study came out, and it showed that the majority of millennials get their news from social media. The majority of millennials get it from sources such as Twitter, such as Facebook, such as Snapchat, or BuzzFeed. The majority. And that's why the majority of millennials are liberal and socialist. Because they don't take the time to do real research. They don't take the time to look into the issues themselves. Instead, they just look at what BuzzFeed or Facebook told them. Folks, these people are the future of our nation. My generation. Millennials. But the majority of millennials are not doing real research, and they're too lazy to actually look up real sources, to actually dig into issues. Instead, they're looking at these terrible false articles from Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat, from BuzzFeed, and then they go and present it as facts as well. You see, this is the problem. When the media is this hard on Trump and the media doesn't actually get facts and the media presents this fake news, then those who diehardly listen to these people, to BuzzFeed, CNN, MSNBC, are also going to have that same notion within their minds. And they're not going to do true research themselves. They're just going to believe the lies. They're going to believe this agenda that is being pushed by the media. When President Carter says that the media is harder on Donald Trump than any other president that he's ever known about, he's exactly right, folks. He's exactly right in saying that, because there has never been anyone that has been attacked on literally everything like President Trump has been attacked on. Whether it's CNN, BuzzFeed, MSNBC, all those news articles on Snapchat, all of these different sources, they're all biased, folks. They're all against our president. And that's where the issue comes from. And that's where all of these millennials are going wrong, because that's what they're using for their news. That's what they're using as their sources and what they think are facts. All right, folks, I'm going to take one last quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hey, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. What it means to be a conservative is very simple. It means that you want to protect freedoms and liberties. You want to protect the Constitution and limit the government. It's a very simple definition. It's a very simple cause to follow. And this is what a lot of people do kind of value conservatism as.
Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, The Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to PragerU.com for all of their latest content. That's PRAGER, the letter U.com. PragerU.com.
Hey everybody, Connor Wise here with an exclusive sneak peek of the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. With universal health care, which is essentially the next step beyond Obamacare, this is where Democrats want to take the country. This is where the left wants us to go. With universal health care, now there's no insurance companies, no one competing whatsoever, and the government controls it all. Have you ever wanted to stand up to your liberal professor? Have you ever wanted to help expand the conservative movement? Well, it sounds like you would be a perfect fit for Youth Revolt. Youth Revolt is a team of dedicated young conservatives fighting liberal indoctrination within our school system. If you're interested in being a part of this team by being a columnist or even hosting your own radio show, go ahead and click the Join Now tab at the top of youthrevolt.org. You'll be asked to answer a few questions, and a Youth Revolt team member will respond to you quickly. Be a part of something bigger than you. Be a part of Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Get out of here, you idiot. Sorry about that, folks. Jason Veely here, host of the Jason Veely Program. I'm a 22-year-old conservative who is fired up and ticked off at the direction the progressive left have taken this country. Join me every weeknight at 7 o'clock as we promote liberty, advance conservative principle, and work to restore the Constitution of the United States. I can get loud and I can get passionate. How can we afford not to when so much is on the line? Tune in to the Jason Veely program, live every weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on u3volt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
I was assuming that it meant coverage, but if he says that there's a small group of people who understood what it was, so I'm like, what is it? What is confetti?
It gets 2 scoops. You know, everyone around the table gets 1, and no word if there were sprinkles.
He paid $38 million, looks like $38 million in taxes.
Are you tired of listening to the snowflake liberal media report about ice cream scoops and typos instead of real facts? What the Wise Conservative Show, we promise you that we will not report about Kofifi, but instead about the truth. Instead about the facts about what's going on in our nation. Join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Wise Conservative Show for your dose of unapologetic conservative talk radio. The Wise Conservative Show, only on U3 Volt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I'm your host, Connor Wise. Folks, we all know that time after time, the snowflakes have melted over a lot of things. Well, now, they're creating this event. So we're coming up pretty soon on the 1-year anniversary of the 2016 election. Well, what we're seeing now are Facebook events around the country are inviting people to gather together and let out and I'm not kidding when I say this is a direct quotation, primal scream over the current state of our democracy. A primal scream over the state of our democracy. That's what they're urging people to do. That's the event. The idea came from Boston, where they're saying that people will gather in America's oldest park, the Boston Common, to scream. Other very liberal cities like New York, Austin, and Philadelphia also have picked up the idea. Boston organizer Johanna Schulman said, quote, "This administration has attacked everything about what it means to be American. Who wouldn't feel helpless every day? Coming together reminds us that we are not alone, that we are a part of an enormous community of activists who are motivated and angry, whose actions can make a difference." More than 33,000 so far have said they are interested in the Boston event, with more than 4,000 already planning to go to it. Meanwhile, in New York City, more than 15,000 said they are interested and more than 2,000 plan to go to the event in Washington Square Park to scream. The New York organizer Nathan Wall said he thinks, quote, "We're a bunch of exasperated people who want to feel connected." Philadelphia organizer, Philadelphia United for Progress, the organization, assured that they, quote, "know we're not helpless." Fans in Philadelphia are encouraged to scream in solidarity from their own backyard if they cannot attend. Folks, when I first read this, it took me a second to actually comprehend what I just read. And that's because of how absurd this is. Do you remember for the year anniversary of President Obama's election? Did people go out into parks and into their backyards look up to the sky, drop to their knees, and scream? No, because it was just an election. Every 4 years, there's a new election. You can choose someone new if you want to. There is no point, and this solves nothing, folks. It proves the snowflake idea. These people are so messed up that they have to gather together on the anniversary of President Trump's election and scream to the sky. I wish I was lying when I read you this story. I wish I was lying when I read it myself. But there are thousands and thousands of people who have literally taken the day off to scream. To scream, folks. These snowflakes cannot get over the fact that they lost an election, and they're still dwelling on it. They're still dwelling on the fact that their terrible candidate lost. They're melting over the fact that they didn't win the election, and it's a year later, folks. And they want to prove that they're sane. They want to prove that they're normal people by yelling at the sky. I've never seen anything so crazy and absurd. And I've never seen anyone try to say that they're normal when they act so odd and strange. These snowflakes have taken it to a new level, folks. This is a new level. Screaming at the sky. Because that'll change something. That'll do it. You know, if America was so full-heartedly against President Trump, like the media says and like these vocal minorities say, then he wouldn't have been elected in the first place. But even if they are now, in 4 years, then they can elect someone different. That's how it works. That's how democracy works. You do have to wait for the term to be over. You can't just put someone else in office because you don't agree, because the minority doesn't agree. He won the election, folks. Get over it. Move on. All right, so I've read you guys a lot of stories and a lot of articles about how schools around the nation have been rather liberal in their actions. Well, with Halloween decorations at this at West Parish Elementary School in Massachusetts, it had these Halloween decorations that were tombstones, and they all had names on them. And one of them was Don Trump. It was part of a game where students tossed beanbags at the stones. And they had to put the president's name on one of the tombstones. Now, the school is now apologizing to the outraged parents, but they should have never allowed this to happen in the first place. A letter to parents from the principal of this elementary school said, quote, "Intentionally or not, it inappropriately brought a political agenda into what was designed to be a fun family affair. The parents or teachers responsible for this disgusting display should claim responsibility publicly and apologize publicly as well." Now, that second quotation there was from the Republican State Committee woman Amanda Orlando Kesterson. She continued, "We should teach our children that the office of the president always deserves respect. Our school system is not a place for nasty political agendas." Folks, we've seen plays where President Trump is assassinated, music videos where he's assassinated. We've seen rappers rap constantly about how they wish that he was dead. We've seen people say that, we've seen Madonna say that she wished the White House would explode. And yes, we've seen professors saying that Donald Trump does not deserve to be president time after time. And now at elementary schools, we are seeing tombstones with our president's name on it. I don't know if it's getting worse or if more of it's being reported or if it's just becoming more extreme. I don't know what is going on, but it seems like more and more of these incidents are happening. where people are, without any filter, saying that they wish the President of the United States was dead. It does not matter if you disagree with the person politically. It does not matter if you're a different party than him, if you have a different ideology than him. You still respect the presidency and the president. We respected President Obama. We respected the presidency. We did not say that we wanted to kill him. We did not say that we wanted to beat him up, that we wanted the White House to explode. Because we're civil. Because we have respect. But we've seen time after time celebrities, music stars, we've seen schools, colleges, elementary schools, high schools, all of these different places and people saying that they wish their president was dead. Folks, there's a reason why we just don't take these people seriously anymore, why these snowflakes aren't taken seriously. It's because they freak out over everything, and because they lost an election, they want the person dead. That's not a rational thought process. It's not a rational thought process to think, oh, you beat my candidate in an election, you should die. But so many people have that thought process. So many people are thinking that. It's astounding the number of people who have threatened our president, threatened the White House, threatened this administration as a whole. This has never before been seen, folks. And it's continuing and continuing and continuing, and it's getting worse, and these snowflakes are freaking out more and more because actual conservative policies are being put into place, and they can't take it apparently. They can't take the fact that they lost an election. I don't think they know how democracy works, folks, and I just said this, but I'm going to say it again. If they really don't like what's going on that much, then when the terms are over for these senators, representatives, governors, whoever you're trying to change, the president, when their terms are over, you get together and you vote for someone new. That's the beauty of our nation. If something's not going right, you vote in someone new. You vote in someone who will do it right. You don't threaten the person who's in office. You don't threaten them day in and day out. But apparently, according to these snowflakes and to these extremist leftists, these alt-left people, that is what you do. All right, that's all for today's episode of The Wise Conservative Show. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. You can find me on Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative, YouthRevolt.org. Go ahead and search the Youth Revolt up on Facebook. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in once again. And as always, God bless.